If I were, I hope that what I would be doing is pressing for a full-scale attempt at a peace deal that would involve a two-state solution.
Oh, that's crazy. They did that a lot, actually. I wonder. Now, does he know that? Does Tall Guy know that? Let's see. Let's get to like the debates where Ben Shabibo will bring
that healthcare is not a right. I mean that very specifically. I think that we really, really overbroadly use the word right. Like all the time we use it, and we use.
Ben Shapiro hates rights, dude. It's like we use it too much. More things should not be considered rights, in my opinion. Like black people eating alongside white people at a restaurant. Why is that a right?
It's a semantically overloaded term. So a right can simultaneously mean a thing that's good for you to have.
By the way, I joke, but Ben Shapiro has unironically made the libertarian argument, same argument that fucking Ron Paul has made against civil rights.
Which is not a right. That's a thing that's good for you to have. That's not the same thing. Right? I love having pizza. That doesn't mean that I have a right to pizza. It does mean, however, that the government does not have the ability to stop me from having pizza, or should not have that ability. So in that sense, I do have a right to have pizza. So I don't have a right to have pizza provided by you, but I do have a right to have pizza that the government cannot prohibit me from having. Right, so I think that we have to be very clear what we mean when we say that somebody has a right to a thing. There's a legal theorist in the late 19th, early for military. Look up.
Hi, Ben.
Howdy.
Also, the gay thing is about being public with it. Still messed up, but that should not be used to justify killing people. No, it's ridiculous. Like, you should be able to be gay in public. That's not even an argument. The problem is, there's a hierarchy of need that, activists will openly tell you. And that hierarchy is completely dominated by trying not to die to rocket fire or trying not to live in a concentration camp, like trying to work on emancipation that directly ruins your life and the lives of others. Before you get to other stuff.
So over the last couple of weeks, you've been making this point that there's no moral equivalency between what Hamas did on October 7 and what Israel's response has been. But do you think there is a point at which the civilian death toll no longer justifies the actions of Israel, or do you think that alternatively Israel can justifiably kill every last civilian as long as its goal is to destroy Hamas?
So Israel should do its best to avoid killing civilians in destroying Hamas. However, there is no number where it goes from every life obviously being valuable. There's no number, however, where it goes from 10,000 to 10,001, at which point it has entered the realm of disproportion. That's not how war works. If war worked that way, no one would ever win one. It also completely destroys.
By the way, that argument is exactly one that Ben uses all the time, but when it's deployed against him, he has to be like reasonable about it. If Ben was talking to an interlocutor and he was actually defending Palestinians, which would never happen, obviously, and he would 100% use that argument and go, how many babies need to be killed? How many babies need to be killed by Israel until you decide, okay, enough babies have been killed, and I think Israel has gone too far. How many? Is it 10,000 babies? Is it 3,005 babies? Because we are at 3,005 babies right now. I've heard him use that argument before. What is the baby to Hamas? What is the baby to Hamas ratio?
It talked about incentive structures. It destroys the incentive structure for military units to act in ways that do not put civilian lives in danger, to allow Hamas immunity by dint of the fact that they are deliberately hiding among civilian populations. If you actually want people to not hide among civilian populations, then there have to be serious penalties to those groups for doing that sort of thing, providing.
What? He said you should make it illegal. Someone should make it illegal for Hamas to operate in the most densely slammed concentration camp. Okay, dude, got it.
A ceasefire to the terrorist group as they hide under the ground is precisely the reverse of that.
But do you not realize that in using...
I like that he didn't even reply to this dude's, it's a loaded question, one that I've heard Ben deploy, but he didn't even question it.
Hamas's disregard for civilian life to justify Israel's action. You are establishing the same equivalency that you are rejecting.
Please explain.
If you say that Hamas is hiding behind civilians, therefore we have a right to go after Hamas, despite the fact that we will get a lot of civilians in the way, you're using the fact that your enemy is evil to justify your own evil actions.
No, I'm lamenting the fact that the enemy is evil. That's a different thing. I'm lamenting the fact that Hamas is
Yeah.
hiding beneath civilians, and
He's saying, oh man, look what you made me do, Hamas. It's so fucked up. That's what he's saying. He hates it. Okay, well, Hamas says the same shit. What do you say to that?
I'm suggesting that if Israel has to get done what it has to get done, that lies with Hamas. That's not. It's not. The death of civilians here is unjustifiable
Bro, he's got nothing.
across the
Wait, I thought he dominated this kid or all of these kids. Turns out he didn't really do
board,
that.
but is blameworthy on Hamas's part. There's a difference between death being justifiable in these circumstances, in the sense that it's ever morally praiseworthy or good, and where you place the blame for that death. I mean, that's a pretty obvious moral point. I mean, to suggest that it's somehow a celebration of the death of civilians to point out that Hamas is hiding.
This person did not say you're celebrating the death of civilians. He simply posed the question. He simply posed the normal question. His follow-up was like way less explosive and incisive than or incendiary than the previous question. He said, if you place emphasis on Israeli civilians and like, if you think that it's bad that Hamas is using a human shield, like what level of Israeli brutality against said civilian population is not morally permissible?
Hiding beneath them is to miss the point entirely. The entire point is that it's horrifying what Hamas is doing.
And he's just like, oh, it's really bad. But also the human, he's doing this argument where it's like the human shield is actually the responsibility of Hamas and not my responsibility or my side's responsibility when I'm the one who is dropping fucking bombs. He basically took the long way of saying, like, analysis is not justification, but his analysis is false. His analysis is that it's not Israel's fault that they're dropping bombs on a fucking densely packed concentration camp. It's actually Hamas's fault. Now, the question, and this is why, for a very long time, those who wanted to defend Israel unconditionally hated the potential prospect of Israel being considered an apartheid state, because it is a loaded term. It's a loaded term that immediately implies one side is in the wrong and one side is the victim. Okay? Because ultimately, everything goes back to that same point. Who started it? The chicken or the egg conversation. Okay? Because when you put it on the same moral playing field, if you put a militant wing that has gained, like, that has never really won an election since 2005 or anything, that is that controls now or is considered the entire representative of this population. Okay, if you put them on the same moral playing field as one of the strongest militaries in the world with a fucking nuke, which I think is ridiculous to do so, but even if you do that, even if you put them on the same moral playing field, all of a sudden you realize that both parties are engaging in acts of terror. Both parties are actually at fault, but there's one party that is certainly more at fault, and that party is the one who is maintaining the apartheid state.
If Hamas wants to end this all today, all they have to do is surrender. That's literally all they have to do. They have,
like, immediately. If Israel wants to end this all today, then one, they can just stop the bombing, and two, end the occupation. Right? End the occupation. There would be no need for a violent resistance. There would be no need for violence at all if Israel was not maintaining an apartheid state. And Ben knows that in his heart, which is why he has to turn around and say, well, actually, if Israel ended its occupation, if Israel ended its apartheid, then all the Jews would be genocided by Hamas, which, of course, would not happen. That would be fucking ridiculous. And the counter to that would be to just go back to the apartheid state if you have a legitimate security concern, which would not be legitimate. It would be an illegitimate security concern, because it's currently an illegitimate security concern. You can't fucking maintain an apartheid regime because you feel like Arabs are scary, barbaric dogs, okay? You can't do that. That is just a racist justification. Every single fascist movement has done the exact same thing, including Nazi Germany against Jewish people and socialists and the disabled. You think they didn't have any justifications for it? Of course they did. It's about whether those justifications are right or wrong and whether or not the actions are permissible. This is why I personally fucking hate the whole, like, some people are evil, some people are good. and evil versus good arguments. It's so stupid. Shapiro says 20% of the Israeli population is Arabic Muslim. They're not Muslim. Not all 20% are Muslim, but yes, 23% of Israel's population are Palestinian citizens of Israel. This is true.
Have to walk out of the tunnels with their arms up and hand the hostages back to the Israelis, and this all goes away literally tomorrow. So all of
yeah, totally, definitely. Except, no, it hasn't, and it never will. That's a fucking lie. It hasn't gone away. There are plenty of periods of time when there's ceasefires where, the ceasefire is originally violated by Israel, but Israel acts like that's not a violation of the ceasefire because it's just the maintenance of the apartheid regime. So it's not technically a violation of the ceasefire when you fucking kill people in the West Bank, right? It's only a violation of the ceasefire when Palestinians retaliate when Hamas retaliates at the behest of the rest of the Palestinians. Yeah, that's not how war works. Also, if Hamas surrenders, it will be over tomorrow. Hamas hasn't always existed. The apartheid has. And the funny thing is, he would say this about the PLO too, because he's a piece of shit. His goal is to undermine any kind of nation-state initiative that offers Palestinians emancipation. That's it. Anyway, at the top of the hour, though, the only emancipation you can get is by subscribing for $5 or free. Here's the 3-minute ad break now. Did Bane gain a little weight? Maybe.
Of this moral heartburn that people are having over Israel attempting to destroy a terrorist group that just murdered 1,500 civilians.
No, people are experiencing moral heartburn because they're not fucking monsters like you. They're experiencing moral heartburn because Israel is engaging in an ethnic cleansing campaign. And they don't believe the dumbass justifications that you're presenting, which is, to destroy Hamas, we must do this. We must kill 10,000 Palestinians. We must kill 3,000 Palestinian children. Nothing to say on Hamas killing civilians. Nothing to say. Nothing to say on Hamas killing civilians. Really, dude? It's almost been an entire month since October 7th. You think I haven't talked about Hamas killing civilians? Huh? Is this your first incursion into the fucking, into the broadcast? It seems like it is. Why do you think that I haven't said anything about Hamas killing civilians? This is the first time I've heard of this man. I assume he has nothing to say about Hamas killing civilians. So stupid. Brother, you've been following since November 2nd. You've heard me talk about that. I've talked about it even here, okay? I've talked about it today.
In their beds, including babies burned alive in ovens. The heartburn over that because Hamas...
By the way, the baby oven thing, it was not true. That was a lie. You know what wasn't a lie, though? Deir Yassin in 1948, where the Lehi and Irgun brigades entered the town of Deir Yassin, which had created a pact of truce with the nearby Jewish villages. Okay? It was an Arab village. And the Zionist brigades did do that. They took a baker and his son, and they posted them right in front of an oven. And they told the baker, go ahead, throw your son in the oven. He refused. They hit him in the head. And then they threw his son in the oven. And they picked him up, and they said, go, follow your son, and threw him in the oven right after his son. It's always projection. Just like there was other, how was it debunked? The baby in the oven thing was, there was no evidence on it. Further reports came to light in the baby who was perished in the oven by attack by Hamas, a tragedy that has horrified millions. The first responder, Asher Moskowitz, who handled the infant's body, records his testimony and speaks how important it is to tell the world. On a recorded account by the New York Sun of first responder Asher Moskowitz, a member of the Israeli police recovery team and the deputy head of Elad branch of the United Hatzalah EMS organization, recalls handling the child's body after the fourth attack. It took the IDF's Rabbinit Shura base in central Israel. I thought the IDF literally said that wasn't true, that there wasn't enough evidence. Not the New York Sun. Let me see. The IDF did say it wasn't true. American media just parrots every bullshit that they say. No, no. Hold up. The Deir Yassin thing is real. There's a direct firsthand account of it. However, what we're talking about is something different, okay? What we're talking about is the first responder claiming that there was a baby in an oven, okay? And then, if I recall correctly, I think the Hamas attacks were horrific. There's no need to minimize them. I will never minimize them. I've said that they're brutal. I said that they're unacceptable. I said time and time again that they are not in any way, shape, or form justifiable. You know this. You've been in here for a very long time at this point. Stop sending me the fucking 1948 catastrophe a video. This is a separate issue, okay? I'm trying to find where I saw information that contradicted this. Not your fucking dumbass, like, winning an argument ass bullshit, okay? If this is objectively verifiably true, then 100% it's objectively verifiably true, okay? Stop trying to send me a counter argument to deflect away. This is important. It's important to recognize the atrocities, okay? It's very odd. I'm trying to figure out exactly where I saw that this was illegitimate. The baby in the oven home is being exposed by Israeli reporters and the regime itself. Oh, this was it. Yeah, this was the one. I don't know what this dude's background is. There's a certain story that has been published on social networks in recent weeks. Oven, from checking with the IDF, Zaka Shura camp, and more. You don't know of such an event. Spreading incorrect stories will harm Israeli propaganda. There are so many stories and documentation of horrors that there's no need for inaccurate additions. This is what I saw. Oh my God, if one more person fucking sends me that every Zionist accusation is a confession video, I'm gonna orbit. I'm gonna literally fly out of orbit. I already made that comparison. Shut the fuck up, okay? Are you guys automatic bots? Like, what's happening? I know. I already brought that comparison up myself. Hamas did not bake a baby in an oven, Israeli journalists report. A baby was found in an oven, baked to death. They baked the Jewish baby alive. These man-bees broke into a house. Okay, what is this? This is just like showing the exact same thing I just looked at. I will write carefully. There are so many stories about the atrocities of Hamas, worse than ISIS, Nazi Holocaust, genocide, cannot be contained, and everything is recorded by the terrorist cameras. So you don't have to make up stories about things that didn't happen, just unnecessary. That's what I saw. Pike's incarnation. Where did the story of the oven come from? Eli Beer, the president of the Hatzalah organization, spoke yesterday at a conference of the Jews. Oh, this is the one. This is the other one I saw. Conference of the Jews in the Republican Party in Las Vegas held over the weekend. Like any good Jew who sees the rich, he thought about the money and told a story that does not exist and was not created about a baby in an oven. What is the beer based on? About one of his volunteers who saw a baby with stove mark. It's also, like, I will never say, a Haaretz reporter asked Eli Beer, the first responder, to clarify it, and he said another volunteer told him about it, and it was just a random anecdote. Now, important to recognize here. Why? The testimony comes from the Zaka volunteer who, it seems, they asked to further clarify, and he said he heard it from someone else. The Haaretz reporter deleted his tweet, though. Oh, look at the link. The one time I took food in my tent and a bear attacked me. I might be completely wrong on this. At the time, I remember they put a baby in an oven. And then immediately saw, not screenshots. This one's not deleted. This is still there. I don't know where the other one is. The other one might have been deleted. But that it originated from this. This is the reason why I didn't cover it. Look at the Insta link. Now it's on the New York Sun. The Asher Moskowitz, deputy head of the Elad branch. I came to ensure the medical care. So the dozens of the bodies as we continued our work. Carried off trucks, small bags. Oh my God. I'm gonna lose my fucking mind. I'm gonna lose my mind. Oh my God. I think it was confirmed. I don't know though, but you're still not sure. I don't see how you are. But if you're not sure, I don't see how you are unequivocal. What? I think Hamas attacks were horrific. There's no need to minimize them. Yeah, I'm not minimizing them. Babies were murdered. I have said it many times, which I think is of course an atrocity. Had either body parts of the body of a baby. They opened the bag. There's a big bag there. It was a gruesome sight, swollen with what it looks like heating element attached. They told us afterwards, after we left the room, they had worked on the body, tried to identify it. After terrorists murdered the parents in a very, very gruesome way home. Oh, so someone else told him that. Liberation has the detailed articles on the claims. It's in French. Where does the claim that an Israeli baby was put to death in an oven come from? The claim came from Eli Beer, head of an emergency relief organization, during the meeting with Jewish members of the American Republican Party in Las Vegas. It is not confirmed by any official source. Several Israeli media outlets have questioned it. Since Sunday, a new horrifying testimony has spread from John Podhoretz, yada, yada, yada. Mossad commentary, followers, everything was recorded. Hamas recorded everything on Telegram channels. Many have seen it, saved it, and plenty is out already. On October 7th, Hamas Nazis entered a home. They draw their weapons. They kill the father, put the baby in an oven. So they're saying there's a video recording of it. Why is the Hamas use it? What the fuck? No, there's no way this is not a real Mossad account. I thought this was a fucking Mossad account that was using emojis. They say widely followed fake account presenting itself of Mossad of the intelligence service. It's fake. Several internet users, notably French included philosopher and columnist Raphael Enthoven, who has since deleted his tweets, relayed the story on Monday. To date, there's no official confirmation of the story, which is the subject of many contradictory claims should be taken with caution. Originally, we found the testimony of Eli Beer on Saturday, speaking to the Republican Jewish Coalition about the atrocities he claims to have witnessed. Before his speech against the Republicans, Eli Beer, who already spoke with Joe Biden last week, had mentioned the Jerusalem Post's intention to obtain the support of American leaders. We are witnessing today the attempts of Hamas propaganda machine to deny and minimize the scale of the massacres in order to improve its international position during the war. And it is our duty to witness these witnesses to these barbaric acts to obtain unwavering support for Americans. Okay, but this article shows the same shit that I just showed you. On Tuesday, after these denials, a statement of the IDF spokesperson reignited speculation on social networks. During a visit to the Shura camp, he said, without reporting further details, they told me that they had found the body of a baby who was actually burned alive. I believe it was in an oven. He was found yesterday. A few hours after the IDF spokesman's video, a new video appeared on social networks featuring Asher Moskowitz, presented as a volunteer for Eli Beer's organization, United Hatzalah. The man says he went to the morgue of the Shura military base and saw among the bodies coming from Kfar Aza, one of the kibbutzim hit by Hamas, of a burned baby. And the translation is that it says it looked like a heating element stuck to the body. They told us after we had left the room that they had worked on the body, tried to identify it. They had gruesomely, as far as they knew, after terrorists had gruesomely murdered the parents in one room, they took the baby and literally put him in the kitchen oven. While the baby was still alive, they put him in the oven and cooked the baby alive. The body was burned, and from what I could see, it was swollen. Something from the oven had attached itself to the body itself. Yeah, this is the not firsthand account, but this is what he's saying that someone told him personally. Yeah, and Eli Beer says he repeated what he had heard from this guy. Not that it fucking matters, because a baby died. So ultimately, who cares? The baby still fucking died. Also, do you know how many fucking babies have been lit on fire? 3,000 children have been lit on fire since Israel's bombing campaigns started. 32 minutes in, first round, talking about the baby stuff. All right, yeah, Eli Beer appears less affirmative than in the account given in Las Vegas, affirming many of the points unknown. Did the Hamas terrorists put the baby in the oven? Then were they killed while they were lighting the oven? Did the baby's parents hide the child in the oven to protect them from the attackers? When was the baby killed? It has sometimes been claimed that the story is proven in the images in a 45-minute non-public montage that the IDF produced to show the press the atrocities. Like it's wrong. In October 30th post on the Gaza Strip, and even today, some doubt their credibility, and they do so by taking advantage of the testimonies that have no basis, denying the massacres in the interest of Hamas supporters and other hostile elements. We're in the weeds. Babies were murdered. Babies have been murdered horrifically on both sides. It's enough. They've been bringing in UK journalists to watch Hamas death porn. I just need to be clear. It doesn't matter. It's horrific. It doesn't legitimize murdering 4,000 children. I agree. There's a lot of evidence about IDF bombing Hamas and hostages on the 7th of October. Anyway, I wanted to look further into this because I had seen Ishai Cohen's take on it, and immediately wrote it off, because why the fuck would I think that he has any reason to lie, like in this direction? You know what I mean? But it's good to know that it still seems like it's up in the air. Asher Moskowitz's testimony. He's saying like he thinks that this is what happened.
Has simultaneously mistreated its own citizens, and so that's somehow Israel's responsibility. So Israel has to allow its own civilians to be put at risk because Hamas is deliberately putting its civilians at risk. Hamas is the governing body in the Gaza Strip. They've robbed their own citizens blind to the tune of billions of dollars. They have a $500 million investment portfolio in real estate around the globe, while 80% of their citizens are living in poverty. They took all the water pipes out of the ground and carved them into rockets. And somehow Israel is supposed to stop from deposing them because they're so cruel to their own civilians? That logic doesn't work in any way, shape, or form.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
This is about Palestine.
Thank you so much for your time. My question is sort of going back to the topic of Israel and Palestine, and specifically focused on Resolution 242. And just to give a context to the audience, like what Resolution 242 is. So in 1967, the United Nations passed Resolution 242, and this legislation requested that Israelite armed forces retreated from the territories occupied during the recent conflict.
From territories occupied,
yes,
not territories.
Yes.
It's actually a real distinction in the law.
Yes,
it makes a big difference.
Territories. Yeah, sorry. And it also stressed the importance of resolving the refugee issue justly, and also encouraged the end of the belligerency claims in states. However, the resolution did not explicitly state which territories Israel had to withdraw from because of the ambiguities in the language of the English version versus the French version. And this ambiguity kind of is being used as a resolution, by the Israelites to justify its continued occupation of some territories. And furthermore, although the resolution mentioned a just resolution for the refugee issue, it failed to clearly address the right of the Palestinian people to statehood. And from my understanding, that is the reason why a lot of the Arab nations sort of reject that resolution. So my question for you is, if you were in their shoe, if you're a Palestinian, aware
He would kill himself.
that is
That's how much he hates Palestinians.
impreciseness within the resolution that will potentially put your people in disadvantage, how would you respond to that, and whether you will accept the partisan deal or will you reject it? And before you answer, I'm ready to be destroyed by Ben Shapiro.
So, I mean, the answer, if I were a Palestinian citizen, which fortunately I'm not because it's horrible to live under the Palestinian Authority or Islamic Jihad or Hamas, but
Yeah, that's why it's horrible. Man, shut the fuck up, bitch. It's horrible to live under the Israeli occupation. Like, goddamn. I hate this Tory fuckfest, dude. All these fucking young dipshits who love debate. He's like, oh, I'm just asking you this question because I love debates. I love debates, but that's it. I can't wait to be destroyed by you. Oh my God. God damn. God damn. I've said this before, but anyone who fucking acts like it is actually the real fear, the real awfulness that exists for the Palestinians is living under Hamas and not living in an Israeli occupation that would, by the way, if destroyed, would also remove Hamas from a leadership position because there would be no goddamn interest to live under Hamas rule if there were elections, like fair and free elections, is such a silly, frivolous, dumb question and dumb argument to have. If you ask the Palestinians, would you rather get fucking ruthlessly slaughtered by the IDF or have Hamas be your leaders? I'm pretty sure they would say, yeah, no, I don't want to be slaughtered by the IDF.
if I were, I hope that what I would be doing is pressing for a full-scale attempt at a peace deal that would involve a two-state solution.
Oh, that's crazy. They did that a lot, actually. I wonder. Now, does he know that? Does Tall Guy know that? Probably not. Let's see.
The biggest problem with the two-state solution right now is that one side wishes to exist and the other side wishes it not to. And
Yes, and that side that wishes it for it not to exist is the Israeli side. Yes.
that's a serious problem. So if that were to alleviate, there's been heavy movement for decades in Israel.
Thank you, Volibear Zelensky. Yeah, one side is fine and has consistently said, we will capitulate to all of your fucking ridiculous demands. The other side has just basically used the two-state solution to continue building a shit ton of settlement.
Israel for ceding territory, which is why Yasser Arafat was in charge of areas of the West Bank, which is why the Gaza Strip, which was completely ceded to the Palestinians in 2005. Israel removed.
Yeah, that's crazy. Who was in charge of the fucking Gaza Strip before then, though? Who? This motherfucker acts like Hamas was always in charge of the Gaza Strip. Shut the fuck up. That's not true. Yeah, dude, 1988, Hamas brings out their own charter. They're like, before that, they're like an Islamic charity. All of a sudden, out of nowhere, they're just like, we love violence. We love killing Jews. That's our thing. And then everyone in the Gaza Strip's like, oh my God, finally, someone who also hates Jews as much as I do. Please, come and control the Gaza Strip. Like, that's not what happened. There were elections that led up to this. Why does Ben not talk about it? Does he not know? Does he not fucking know? He's acting like Hamas has always controlled the Gaza Strip while simultaneously recognizing that that Arafat, the PLO, actually was broadly popular, like infinitely more popular in that same time frame where Hamas was nothing.
8,000 Jews from the Gaza Strip in 2005. They did not have internal military presence in the Gaza Strip, which is why they didn't actually have any intelligence as to what was going on
Bullshit.
October 7th. And so the obvious answer would be
His argument is not one that is even internally consistent with like with what the IDF has ever said. That's also a lie. There's never been a moment where the IDF has been like, yeah, we don't know anything about what's going on in the fucking Gaza Strip. What are you talking about? It's the most surveilled area of all time. That is so wrong. Not only that, but also motherfucking Egypt told them. And even, I don't know if this was, I feel like I read somewhere that even American authorities talked about some movements, but I'm not entirely certain. Let me see. But Egypt definitely did tell the Israeli government that there was movement happening in the lead up to October 7.
That if a Palestinian government were to arise, that were trustworthy and credible in its pledges, not
Bullshit, 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 bullshit. Fuck you, bullshit. Suck my dick. Liar, liar. You're a fucking liar. There was a Palestinian government. There was a Palestinian government that literally America even liked, okay? He's acting like, he is 100% acting like it was almost always. It was in Haaretz, but retracted after Net spoke. Yeah, I thought I read something like this. U.S. intelligence warned of the potential violence for days before Hamas attack. Anyway, none of that matters. None of that matters because he's lying about other shit, okay? The PLO was broadly popular, was incredibly popular. The PLO won by like 83%, okay? 83%! Like, the best governing mandate you can get that no fucking Israeli leadership has ever gotten, okay? Single-handedly. Get the fuck out of here. And they got that because Palestinians were excited at the prospect of finally getting recognition. Palestinians were very excited at the prospect of being able to retain their own lands, being able to maybe not go back to the 1967 borders, which, you know, that was the ultimate goal. But obviously, Israel was never going to let that happen. But even then, like, a couple of points were always in contention. What happens to Jerusalem? Okay? Does Israel get to have troops on the border, originally on the border of Jordan? And then also, do Palestinians get to have their own elections? Do Palestinians get to have their own standing military? And last but not least, or well, 5, I guess, the fourth plank would be settlements. Stop the settlements. Stop the land grabs in the West Bank. And later on in, I guess, Gaza as well. But especially in the West Bank. And the fifth point of that plan, the fifth plank of this was also a right to return for Palestinians. Israel did not want any of that, ever. And anyone who ever tells you that they wanted that is a liar. The closest you got to it was, I guess, Yitzhak Rabin, and, you know, he was fucking assassinated. So there you go. What is this? I guess Palestine is not willing to take a fair share of the land. They want it all, which isn't possible at this time. That's fucking bullshit. You're a stupid person if you think that that was ever any of the modern considerations. That was never a modern consideration. There was a point where Arafat literally was so goddamn cucked that he was willing to do a 6-to-1 land swap, okay? Or no, that was the Israeli suggestion, was a 6-to-1 land swap. It's unacceptable. It was humiliating. There's a reason why the guy who came into power with 83% of the fucking popular support ended up being despised, okay? Ended up being despised by the end of this like multiple decade process. PLO was united under Yasser Arafat to 90% or more. Those days are gone. After the death of Yasser Arafat, PLO just went into the grave. The uprising of Hamas was due to the injustice actions of Israel and the silence of the world. Hamas was created as a resistance against Israelis. And let me make clear, Hamas won elections in Gaza, not by terrorism, but by votes. No, you're missing a broader part of this conversation. Hamas, much like other factions, was one of the militant groups that did not want to put down their arms. It was a competing faction against Yasser Arafat's PLO. And the more Israel destroyed Yasser Arafat's popularity by ruining his, by ruining every attempt, by ruining every single fucking attempt to come up with a peace solution, by utilizing the two-state solution possibly as like dangling it in front of their fucking noses while you simultaneously grabbed more and more land in the West Bank, which was the real design of the two-state solution and the negotiations, okay? How Hamas won and kept control of Gaza. Okay, we're going to talk about that in a second. Here's where you're wrong. In the Second Intifada, Hamas did not want to engage. By that point, Hamas did not want to fucking engage with the Israeli government because I hate to admit it, they were right. The Israeli government had no interest in a fucking peace negotiation. The last conversation that they fucking had, the last negotiations process that they engaged in, was not even done with someone who had any political power remaining. And what's his face? Bill Clinton openly lied. Bill Clinton openly lied alongside the Israeli authorities about how Arafat was responsible for the deal falling south, when it is well documented to be the exact opposite. That Arafat, even at that point, and American authorities that were in those meetings have openly written about this. Okay, they've straight up written about this. Bill Clinton manipulated Arafat and tried to get him to capitulate to some of the most unjust, insane demands that the Israeli authority, which at that point had no real political power remaining in the country, was making. Okay? I think this part is not on Wikipedia, so D thinks that Hamas was just democratically elected without interference part. I think most new frogs read basic history and will get that impression. Okay. This part is very important to understand. So even before the 2006 elections, okay, Hamas is gaining momentum as a militant resistance group, right? As a militant resistance group, but their popularity is nowhere near, even at its low point, nowhere near Arafat's popularity. The PLO is still seen as the important, the actual leadership, okay? But by 2000, by the last time that there is like any sort of peace negotiation, Palestinians are perfectly aware that the Israelis have no interest in meeting their very reasonable demands. Arafat goes in to that last negotiation and is basically withered down to whatever the fuck the Israeli side wants. He says yes to almost everything. He says we will do a right to return in the interim period for I think 15,000 refugees, with hopes that later down the line we would like to get assurances for a right to return for all Palestinians while maintaining Israel's own demographic concerns. Think about that. That's how important this is. Okay? At this point, the damn near entirety of West Bank is completely partitioned. They've taken over. They've kept building settlements throughout this multiple decades long process of engaging in an act of settler colonial terrorism. Okay? Israel still casts it aside. And then they turn around and lie about Arafat. And Arafat, in an effort to save face at this point, because he's like, there was another point of contention with Jerusalem, which I won't even get into. He was literally saying, like, I will get executed if I offer you Jerusalem unconditionally. I can't do that without, like, the entire Islamic world's feedback on the matter. This is an important place for all Muslims around the world. So they just, the deal falls apart. At this point, Bill Clinton is like, he doesn't even give a fuck. He just turns around and lies and says, Arafat tossed the deal aside. We gave good terms. Not true. Yasser Arafat later privately reveals that, yes, he had conceded to all of the demands. Arafat offered Palestine being a limited arms state, but Israel could not even accept sovereign airspace and water rights for the West Bank. Yeah. Ignorant of the history of the two sides, that's fine. What do you have to say about Israel breaking international laws from day one until now? So now, listen, that's unimportant. We're not going to get into that right now. My point is this. So Arafat is destroyed at this point. He's destroyed. Hamas sees the writing on the wall and starts blowing shit up, okay? They start engaging in suicide bombings. And throughout this time frame, they start gaining more popularity because they are seen as like the new kids on the block that are interested in fighting back against the occupation at this point. So then 2005 comes around. George W. Bush has basically said to everyone in his cabinet that he's going to solve the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. This is his like side project. When he's not busy fucking ruthlessly slaughtering millions of Iraqi children and you know kids in Afghanistan, he's also trying to fuck shit up in Israel. Okay? So George W. Bush, and they at this point they have Mohammed Dahlan, who is the one of the enforcers inside of Fatah, and he's a CIA guy. Like he is literally directly working with the American authorities. They like him. They want him to be the guy who ends up controlling the Palestinian Authority. They want him and the Palestinian Authority, which is secular, to work alongside Israel, and they think this is our guy. These guys are going to win. However, they're very unpopular. Okay? They're very unpopular at this point, because why the fuck would they be popular? In the eyes of the Palestinian population, it's now been fucking multiple decades where, like, they put their arms down. They started working alongside the Israeli government. They literally kill Hamas leaders. They fucking actually use CIA-backed police and Palestinian forces to kill Hamas leadership. There's constantly a back and forth fighting between Hamas and secular PLO, and the people see it. The people see that in this entire process, there is no, there has never been a moment where Israel ever even cared and has humiliated the PLO. Arafat is very unpopular. Dahlan is unpopular as well. He's seen as a CIA asset because he is. They think he works with Mossad. Some people still say he works with Mossad. I don't know. I don't know about that part, but I know that Americans like them. So then George W. Bush says, we are going to hold elections. Fatah, Palestinian Authority, says, fuck no, do not have elections. We are not ready for elections. We are very unpopular in the eyes of Palestinians. We might actually lose these elections. Hamas might win these elections. Hamas runs in that election as a singular, violent emancipatory force, as the Islamist guys, okay? But more so than being Islamists, or more so than their violent emancipatory actions, they run as the uncorrupted party. We do not touch the Americans. We are anti-corruption. At this point, Palestinians think, understandably, that all the secular parties are corrupted. Okay? So in spite of the pushback, the Americans foolishly go, fuck it, YOLO, do the elections. The elections come out, Hamas wins with, like, I think 11% or 13%. I don't remember the exact numbers. I'm freestyling over here. I'm giving you top dome shit, okay? And in many of the places where Hamas has one guy, there's like 3 secular people going up against one another, splitting the vote. So Hamas ends up winning control over Gaza. Now, not fully though, because there's still multiple parties. You have the DFLP, you have the PFLP, you have Fatah. So what ends up happening in that situation is George W. Bush goes, okay, we're going to do a fucking coup. Oops, you lost the election. Time to do a fucking coup. Hamas won by 3%, but won like 30 more seats. Yeah. Let's just do a fucking coup. They know that the coup is coming. Hamas squashes it, and permanently, in that time frame, permanently becomes the authority in Gaza. They are now officially the full-blown authority in Gaza in perpetuity. Since then, no elections have taken place. Between the time period of 2006-2007 until now, okay, the Palestinian Authority has been mistreated, which controls the West Bank now, and Hamas controls Gaza. They're warring factions still. I mean, these guys tortured one another. Mohammed Dahlan was learned enhanced interrogation techniques from the CIA, which he used on Hamas, both Hamas militants and sympathizers, which was on record, and people fucking hated that. They thought he was really brutal. They thought, oh, this is another American dog, American asset. In this time frame, Hamas's popularity starts growing. Why? Because the Palestinian Authority, which is still collaborating with the Israeli government in spite of the fact that the Israeli government has given them nothing, okay, is now basically a part of the Israeli government's security apparatus. How was it ever America's choice to hold elections? Oh my God, please, brother, come on. Of course, it was America's choice. Why do you think Camp David happened? Like, Like, do you never think about these things at all? Like, do you never go, it's really odd that America had so much power over Israel and what happens to Palestinians? Like, yeah, of course they do. They control everything. So when I say these motherfuckers, America bad, this is part of the reason why I'm saying America bad. Here's what's important. Here's what you need to understand. They control everything. Yes, America, they, in this process, not like some other fucking weird, anti-Semitic conspiracy. America does control everything. They have 800 military bases around the world that we know of. Shut the fuck up. If Joe Biden tomorrow said Israel, not a single other bomb will be dropped on Palestinians as far as I'm alive, they literally would halt the bombing. You understand that? That's the level of control that we have over Israel. The Bush defense's goal is spreading democracy to the Middle East. Sweeping victory of Hamas on the Palestinian elections threw Bush and his aides on the defensive on Thursday, complicating the administration's policy of trying to promote democracy as an antidote to the spread of terrorism. Reacting uneasily to the Hamas triumph, Mr. Bush said the results spoke to the failures of President Mahmoud Abbas and the old guards of his Fatah faction to root out corruption and mismanagement. Bitch, you are the corruption and mismanagement. You're responsible. There was a peaceful process as people went to the polls, and that's positive. Yeah, by the way, the elections were fair and free, for the record. Every single Palestinian election that's been held has been held with international, with members of the international community, verifying it every step of the fucking way. So what I was going to explain here is that between 2007 and now, because Israel has continued its policy of undermining Palestinians who are fucking foolish enough to collaborate with them and basically simply using them as a part of their security apparatus, Palestinians feel increasingly like they are out of options. And of course they feel that way because they are correct. They are out of options. Israel, in this time frame, mostly under the watchful eye of one Benjamin motherfucking Netanyahu, Philadelphia's own demon son, very deliberately has pushed Palestinians into the hands of Hamas. Why has he done this? Well, let's ask him why he's done this. He's openly stated why he's done this. Once again, it's not like these are secrets, okay? It's like openly discussed. According to Benjamin Netanyahu, at least in a 2019 meeting that he had with his own Likud party, he said, if you ever want to thwart Palestinian attempts at Palestinian statehood, what you must ensure is that Hamas is the governing entity. Hamas has to be the leading governing body because everyone views Hamas as a terror cell. Hamas is a terror cell. Therefore, if they are the only governing body of the Palestinians, well, we can always control how high the flames go. As in, no matter what happens, let's say Hamas gets out of line, there's no way that they will be internationally recognized as a normal governing body. And you're experiencing the impact of that terror designation to this day. That's precisely the reason why, even though the civil side of governance in Gaza is technically still Hamas, right? When doctors give you information about what's going on the ground, people go, well, this is a Hamas-led, medical, this is a Hamas-led Gaza health ministry, so I don't know if we can even trust those numbers. It makes it much easier to justify ethnic cleansing because they are illegitimate in the eyes of the Western world. So now you can slap on the Israel versus Hamas sticker on every action that Israel engages in. And because they're terrorists, we have only one way of analyzing terrorism and terrorists, and that is we have to keep fucking killing them. We have to keep ethnically cleansing these Palestinians because we're just simply trying to control how high the flame goes and deal with Hamas. That was a deliberate design, not by Benjamin Netanyahu, but by basically every single Israeli administration that has purposely pushed Palestinians towards recognizing that the only person, when they watch their fucking family members get destroyed, when they watch their family members get killed in the West Bank, when they watch their aunts and uncles get brutalized in the Al-Aqsa Mosque every year ritualistically, when they watch how horrifyingly humiliating the conditions are for adults, where you see those videos where like the occupying force in the West Bank will go and like literally grab a child in front of their fucking fathers. 8 armed thugs will grab a kid, like a 12-year-old kid, in front of their fucking dad and will point their gun at the dad and say, what the fuck are you gonna do? Okay? And break their will and try to break their will and bulldoze their fucking homes and blow up their fucking houses. Like, let settlers blow up their houses with Molotov cocktails. Okay? With no legal recourse. Because Palestinians are led under military governance, whereas the fucking settlers, who 60,000 of them in 2015 literally came from America, like Rhode Island and Long Island and Staten Island and all the fucking islands and Brooklyn, okay? Those Americans have the same exact rights that Israeli citizens have in the settlements. When you live under that apartheid state with no legal recourse, with no standing army, with nothing whatsoever, basically just waiting for your random death sentence that might come any day now when a fucking psychopathic, far-right religious fascist assumes that you are, or sees you in their periphery and wants to spit on you and fucking kill you, okay, when that's your everyday existence, yeah, I think people are going to probably go, I don't give a fuck who is doing my defense. I don't give a fuck if they're Islamists. I don't give a fuck if they are the most far-right institution on the planet. I don't give a fuck who is going to defend me. At least these motherfuckers are defending me. This is why I say it is sheer arrogance. Thinking that you can control 5 million people like that. Thinking that you can manage an apartheid state like that. Okay? Assuming that there will be no punishment for that. Assuming that there will be no cost for that. Of course there's going to be a cost for that. Of course. Yeah, it is the hubris of the despot. You're absolutely correct. Time and time again, these animals in the Israeli Air Force and the Israeli Defense Force, the occupying forces, have gone back in and mowed the lawn, okay? They've done it time and time again. They've mowed the lawn. What happened? People's emancipatory interests did not go away. They're still human beings, no matter how much you tell yourself that they're not, that they're animals. No matter how much you tell yourself that they're human animals and they're subhuman. No matter what you fucking think, they're still human beings. You cannot break the will of people, especially when they have nowhere to go. So of course they're going to fucking fight back. Of course they're going to fight back. And throughout the last couple of decades, okay? Throughout the last couple of decades, the violence has only increased not because like Hamas is extra genocidal or some shit, or they want to kill more Jews than before, okay? The violence has increased as an adjustment that Israel has made because the large power at play here dictates, they set the tone, they dictate how violent things are going to be. The actual offensive launched by Hamas was named Al-Aqsa Flood, directly responding to the raids on Al-Aqsa Mosque. The Israeli army targeted this mosque, the third holiest site for all Muslims around the world, in a number of raids. In these raids, Israeli forces employed tear gas, rubber bullets, and indiscriminately beat peaceful worshippers. It is a flagrant provocation and a defilement of a place deemed to be sacred to the 1.8 billion Muslims around the world. By no means can we confuse the trigger of this crisis with its origins and its causes. You can keep saying these guys are doing these bad things, these brutal things because they're bad and brutal. Your inability to assess where this violence is coming from, your inability to analyze where this violence is coming from, not justification, but your inability to assess that is the reason why the death toll was so high. So high that it was the most deadly incident for Jewish people since the Holocaust. Nobody wants that. Nobody. You can sit there and go, sorry, I'm just going to fucking close my ears to that reality and act like you love that. You just want Jewish people to die. You just want Jewish people to die all day, every day. Truth doesn't change. I feel more comfortable thinking like, every single person that I have actually talked to about this issue is not necessarily recognizing the humanity of Palestinians and trying to help me understand, but instead are just like dangerous propagandists who believe in in murdering all Jews or whatever, but that doesn't change the reality. Just like every single person knows that you cannot simply eradicate Hamas. Something else will always come in its place. Unless you engage in a full-blown ethnic cleansing, you will never, ever be able to break the will of the Palestinian people. As long as they're there, they are going to want to take their homes back. And they have every right. They have every right to want to take their homes back. That's crazy. They have every right to want to live peacefully alongside those who have oppressed them. It's ridiculous.